to some degree, need to be more involved. Obviously, that's probably not going to happen until after October for good reason. But regardless of what anybody, in a perfect world, no. But I think because of what it's born from and how, again, for lack of better terms, cultish so much of the user set it's to some degree he at least needs to be involved for a period of time, enough to get through a certain wave of built up expectation, psychological expectation for the people that have been here. But I don't think rage marketing has its place going forward. It served its purpose, and Twerk and Richard was a success to some degrees, but very much backfired in others. I think we're still dealing with the consequences of that in certain ways, but we're also still dealing with the benefit of that in other ways, depending on how you look at it. It worked, but yeah, I think from my perspective, it'd be nice if he came back as just old top hat Richard and hung out for a while. Not, the part is that it's tied to this expectation of him bringing in so much money from the outside, and all that all those tied up funds, and that story is going to continue to rear its head, regardless of the initial structure psychologically of not having any expectations of those extremely large amounts of money that are now being hawked and watched, and everyone's looking at what those wallets are doing. But of course, that. Those aren't Richard. That's just the origin address wallet. But yeah, I would like that it's not necessary. But to be honest with myself, I don't think that's possible. And I think at least he should do it for himself, and hopefully not twerking and making shitty documentaries.
No, I'm inclined to agree with you there. I've thought about the thought experiment going both if Richard never comes back and if Richard comes back in full force. Now, look, I'm an open-minded, optimistic guy. I'm just struggling to see how it can be successful without him. Now, if he's suppressed by the government and that's why he's not back, I feel like there's always a shred of hope. But if he's publicly like, oh, hey, he loses the SEC case and he gets a public cease and desist order, like he's legally not allowed to talk about crypto or Hex and Pulsechain,
Right.
And then like the hope of a win is gone. I mean, yeah, we could sit around and say, oh, it's decentralized, but yeah, so are 100 other chains.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily saying that we need Richard, but I struggle to see what that reality looks like. I mean, I guess I have the one possible scenario that I see in that reality is maybe Richard becomes a pariah or a martyr, and then Pulse Chain takes off because it's like Free Ross movement, if you're familiar with that.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a similar type scenario like Free Richard, and like that could have this like real community grab by the bootstraps and lift this thing up. But I definitely think it's a lot easier and cleaner if he just comes back and,
For sure. Yeah.
and starts pumping it basically. And because he's the biggest influencer in this community. So he's the one that can get on all the big streams, from the legacy news outlets to the crypto influencers. He's the one that could actually be there talking about it. None of us are big enough to get on anywhere serious right now.
Yeah. Exactly. Or have the reach to do so, even if we're trying, kind of thing. Or if others are trying.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about, because to a degree, the community's already proven that it can continue building and without him, to certain degrees, but also at the same time, there's this expectation of him coming back as this underlying catalyst for staying motivated and working.
Right.
And then there's the whole side of like what are the implications of the most devout followers of him as a person capitulating and rinsing out and finally giving up. And is that healthy or is that not? I think in certain ways it could be healthy to sever that really that expectation kind of side of the community, and which is an underlying catalyst for a lot of the toxic social aspects of the people in it. Yeah, I guess I lost my point, but yeah, a lot of different directions you could look at it from a collective psychology perspective.
I do hear what you're saying. I do. I because yeah, I've also thought about that too. What if he comes back and does one stream? I would probably see a pump because people would speculate, "Oh, Richard's back." But I
Right.
think really, I think he's got to sustain because you could almost argue that maybe this is going to sound dramatic, but I don't have better words for it right now. That the community's a bit traumatized, maybe, and they might feel like he can leave them at any moment. And so he's going to, in a way, have to build up that trust again, by being present, being public, being consistent to where the new reality is, okay, Richard is here and he's not going anywhere.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, we've already seen samples of, crazy reactions to him just like this whole time. Obviously, people will always over exaggerate everything he does, but then we also saw him pump the price and it getting eaten down immediately, and then leveraging to the other side in a weird way. So there's all this money that's waiting to get out. So yeah, from that angle, it would yeah, for sure be healthiest if he comes back for a sustained period of time, just to rinse out fucking people just waiting with their fingers on the trigger, waiting to get out. And and uh, and regardless, there's always going to be those overreactions to his presence. It's just the nature of the setup of having such a polarizing figure at the center of all of it. But yeah, I wonder. We'll see. I think we won't get any indication until after October. But fingers crossed that works out and you get some of obviously all of crypto as a whole. People are going to be drawn to the space regardless, just because of the case as a whole and how it ties into way more than just Pulsechain, way more than just Hex. So there's a lot of retail that I think is somewhat gate kept by other personalities that may be interested but are waiting for approval.
What do you mean by that?
Like people that hear about Pulsechain, people that may be interested in getting into Pulsechain, but because their favorite influencers are anti Richard Hart or anti,
Uh,
So if
right.
if if the evolution of this case works in his favor and we're a good story for crypto as a whole, and he's actually proven to be fighting as hard as he has been for the good of crypto as a whole, and we get a win just from that perspective, Pulsechain aside, then I think a lot of forgiveness will be had, and a lot of interest will be opened up just from the news cycle itself.
I hear you. I understand. And that makes total sense. Yeah, people are looking to be led.
Hmm. Unfortunately.
Hey, Top Gun, what's up, buddy?
Hey, not too much, just listening to you guys, and I'm like, wow, I need to buy more Pulse. You guys sound so depressed. I bought more today, and it wasn't enough. You guys are bottom signaling all over this, and I'm like, wow, yeah, we're here. You know what happens after like 9, 10 weeks of red candles? Like, you can't have more red candles. Eventually, you run out of Jeet sellers. Like, Pulse Chain is under 1 billion market cap right now. At least excluding the OA. Like, when I go and look on Deck Screener and I'm doing the calculations and it's like, oh, just 400 million something. I'm like, oh, that's for half the supply outside the OA. Okay. But like, yeah, we're cheap discount right now. And green candles will do their own advertising, especially with our huge community getting loud and going, look, we put out for 3 years, stuck around, and now we've got our 2X. And there'll be people showing charts everywhere. It does great for the onboarding. And, regardless of who controls the sacrifice address, it is loaded. It has the cannon pointed, as Sami says, like beautiful words. Like, yeah, Fat Man Billionaire has his $1 billion cannon loaded. And at any point, like, he can offload and start pumping Pulse Chain if it doesn't just naturally recoup from this kind of overselling. So that all does a lot of good. And then you have subsectors growing, whether people appreciate some of the toxicity in the groups or not. If you go look at the Tangang charts, they don't do 90% down. Like, you get maybe 50 or 75% down corrections, and then they start going up. Like, all that bear market trauma that we're all feeling. I've been shaking that off all day playing in Tangang charts. And then I even got brazen and it was like, oh, yeah, I'll just run my address in a block explorer quickly because I think I forgot about a token I own. Oh, look, airdrops. So that's always an exciting part of the day. So I learned long ago that there's more than one way to make money in a market. I mean, you should be able to long it, you should be able to short it. Options, not always, option trading, not really here, but providing liquidity and market making is its own form. So like I've been playing all aspects of this chain, and regardless of what price does, I'm like, it's interesting, it's active, it's getting more and more active, more and more lively. Like, you can go and look at the active wallet count and the daily active wallets. Well, it used to be like 8,000 at its bottoms, then 10,000 at daily active wallets at its bottoms. Now it's like 12,000 at its bottoms. So I mean, you track the bottoms, and that's a pretty good indication of like the baseline of like improvement on it. And oh, okay, so steady growth over the months, 20% more users daily using it, steady over the month, another 20% users. It's not as fast as we all hoped, but this tis the season. The next year is pretty much going to be pretty dang exciting. I'm glad to be here. So cheer up, guys. Like, there's a lot to look forward. Go play in some charts.
No, 100%. I think you just caught a different side of the conversation. Early on, we were talking about how great of an offer from a cost opportunity, like where we're at, is just incredible from that perspective. And then also we touched on like how regardless of Richard's presence, we are thriving and growing. And you're seeing all these like subsectors just feeding off each other, whether it's socially negative or positive, it's still equaling growth, and everyone's, we're growing without them, and that's a super healthy sign. So yeah, I think some of that was out of context, but can't agree with you more, man. We're killing it, and there's opportunity abound for sure.
Top Gun, how dare you accuse me of being a pessimist?
Not pessimist, depressed. Different. There's just that melancholy in the voice of, I don't know if Richard's gonna come back. Like, I haven't cared if Richard came back for a while. It was funny right when I was on RH Max, and I'm like, oh yeah, anybody who's waiting for him to use his sack wallet to buy, just sell now. What does he do within 24 hours of me saying that on someone who does follow his channel? He deploys. Like, actually, I need to go book. Hey, RH Max, what are you up to? I'm going to go tell everyone on your channel that they shouldn't be waiting for him to spend any more money. Like, he's abandoned. Now he's done, or something, just so he can, like, make me look like an asshole again. I'm sure that will actually, like, that might prompt him to start into his spending spree again. You never know.
No, it's 2 a.m. and that's why you're hearing it in my voice. I'm still net bullish on Pulse Chain. I'm still making money on Pulse Chain. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't out there doing some degeneracy. But hey, I just happen to be the founder of the best place to swap on Pulse Chain, so I'm always using that in-app swap feature. But no, I think what me and Magic Internet Money, Magic Carpet Ride were talking about was basically just okay. In short, we deep in this community are familiar with the different meme coin factions, but man, come on, man, people out there in the general public aren't coming into Pulse Chain because some meme coin faction launched meme coin number 14. You know what I mean? That's money recycling hands. That's the same people playing the same game with each other, and somebody just won that round. That's really all it is.
Like, I didn't understand Hex was going up because Richard was pumping a lot with his Ethereum contributions he'd received. Like, no idea. I just saw a chart that goes up, and I got totally dragged in, and I'm glad I did. I learned a lot from the community, but the charts that generally looking good, they're going to attract people. At least that's my optimism, and I'm sticking to it. I bought more Pulse today. I'm like, this is gonna succeed. I still got a lot of hope in it, and it's not based on Richard. I mean, I really kind of actually believed and bought into the no expectations, and regardless, like the fact that no matter what, nobody gives up, and all this meme warring is awesome. It's like, I don't watch wrestling. I don't need to watch the WWF. I've got crypto
Right.
Twitter.
Right. You got
All
our own
right,
soap
like,
opera right here.
yeah, I get to see all the drama and smackdowns, and it's like, you know what? It frustrates a lot of us over invested for a while. Like, until I sat back and got some perspective on it, that this is exactly why people couldn't turn Jerry Springer off for like 2 decades. Like, this is why, the bigger this gets, the more people want to join in on it. The more people pick sides and the sides grow. And then you get spite buying and FOMO buying, and it grows and it steamrolls. Like, Richard alone, if he is what it takes to make the chain work, then we should all give up and go away, because eventually his injection cannons are going to run out of cash. That's not an infinite thing. So, like, I've never been counting on him to actually pump my bags. I was surprised when the SAC funds actually started moving to do a little tickle, and I was pissed. Because as far as I was concerned, I was watching some excellent ecosystem growth. And just as it was starting to hit some peak at where, like, okay, yeah, Pulse is going down, but the other coins on it are naturally organically rising, he started injecting cash into Pulse, and idiots started running out of all those other charts into Pulse. And those other charts, the things growing on Pulse chain that all appeal to different people in different demographics, are those best onboarding tools. So his unnatural injection at speed disrupted natural ecosystem growth, not like building a random development just in the middle of a wetland marsh as ducks are about to breed. Oh, bye bye, duck population. Like, it's just whoop. The way I watched all the charts in the entire ecosystem moving funds, it was just kind of like a donkey punch the moment he did it. And it was great for all the yeets that wanted to buy in at the moment he did and then exit as soon as he stopped buying, and do what we've had for an unnatural 9 to 10 weeks of down. So, like, for now, I'm happy with him not interrupting, because it's not like pumping Hex coin. Like, if he's injecting, I'd rather him not be putting so much into Pulse. Like, okay, fine, if you're going to get eaters to chase you, at least give favor to your altcoins. Pump Hex, Pulsex, and Ink, and maybe don't pump a Pulse so hard. I don't know, but yeah, him showing up and messing up with things, like, the ecosystem that's growing is not necessarily based around all of his views, because I mean, everybody is entitled to their own views. Like, that's where we do have a blockchain, an actual open freedom of speech blockchain. And yeah, the organic growth on it is awesome. And when you actually have a free market, an unmanipulated market, you get unexpected, wonderful growth opportunities. And I think we've seen a lot of those start to happen. I've seen at least enough that I'm not going anywhere.
About if you were in this community. Obviously, if you wanted to talk about, Ethereum or whatever other blockchains or tokens, you had that option. But in the context of this community, the only thing to talk about was Hex. And even when Pulse Chain first came out, those who were around may or may not remember that it was even sacrilegious to talk about projects that would be built on Pulse Chain. The early projects like Internet Money, like us, we had to fight for this, fight for our right to talk about our project and it be acceptable within the Hex and the new Pulse Chain community. So that was an interesting time. And then it evolved into, it's good and bad, right? Because it's good to have a decentralized community because that's healthy. If you have all these people literally just preaching one narrative and preaching the gospel, so to speak, that's what cults do, right? And so not saying that the Hex community was a cult. If it was, I was in a cult. I was a part of it. But there was similarities and attributes of it. And so we weren't taken seriously in a lot of ways. But now we have this Pulse Chain ecosystem. It's not just a token, it's an ecosystem. It's our own country that all these different, quote, businesses in the country are existing. You can go shop where you want. You can spend your money where you want. And with that has come this now decentralized community within the country. And I actually think in some ways it's weakened us, because before, if anybody was making content, if anybody was making merchandise, if anybody was investing, if anybody was onboarding, all of that energy and social awareness was going to Hex the token. And now all that energy and social awareness is sort of diversified and decentralized, but it's all coming into Pulsechain. All of this leading up to say the community is unified and fractured simultaneously, because you have different meme coin factions, Tang Gang, Solid Index, 9-inch, Atropa, PDI, and then I'm sure there's some other rogue communities there. You've got all the different builders. You've got people who are still RH core coin holders. But I think as long as everybody's goal, and of course you want to make money, but if your goal is, hey, is this good for Pulsechain? Then I think it's ultimately a net win. And that ultimately has the potential to slingshot us further than when we were all unified around Hex, because now we have way more to talk about. There's depth. So I think that was a long-winded way to say that even though there's a bunch of different communities and perspectives and things going on, I think that the stage is set to slingshot further than we ever had the potential to before. Those early sacrifice days, I remember Richard Hart streaming and like, yeah, another 14 billion came in today. And just like talking about $14 billion like it was nothing, like nonchalant, like, yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, come on, bro, you can be a little happy. like a little bit, bro. Come on. Downloaded the wallet and were introduced to Pulsechain. So the more events and the more communities within Pulsechain, like you guys, like what we're doing, that are talking about their thing that ultimately in some way leads back to Pulsechain, that's onboarding. So keep up the good work there.